I got to give a different introduction to this one for some obvious reasons. All right. As a St. Louisan, I got a chance in 2000 to come home, and Jim Woodcock hired me to be the broadcaster for the St. Louis Blues. My dad, my family, everybody's still here, and I know how special that was for me to have my dad sitting in the booth for game number 1 that I did in that 2000-2001 season. But that year I got paired up with Kelly Chase. And for the next 18 years, I'm telling you folks, it was one hell of a ride, as you could just imagine. But right from the start, Chaser was Chaser. Took me under his wing. He just left the ice. He'd played with guys like Scotty Young and said, "You're coming to dinner with us." And so I'd go to dinner with him, and then I would kind of politely bow out at a certain time and let those guys be those guys and do their thing. But here it comes 18 years later, and we got to find a new partner, and it was an interesting process to do so. And I'll just be real honest and blunt with how the story goes. We had some well-qualified St. Louis Blues alumni. We had people that had filled in when Chaser was unavailable to do a game. And I called up Andy Strickland, who is as tied into the amateur hockey scene as anybody else, and I said, "Hey, I just want to make sure, in all fairness to this process, that I'm not overlooking somebody." I mean, at that point, I'd had 14 different people reach out. Some former Blues that are working out of town, some people that aren't, former Blues as well, reach out. And I said, "Look, I don't necessarily need to hire a St. Louis Blues alumni. Is there somebody that's worth talking to? Is there somebody we should be asking about, that's got some personality that can talk, but that, just the person has to be there too. I don't care if they played in the NHL or not. Is there a kid that played college hockey or something?" He said, "Joey Vitale's here in town." And I'd met Joe briefly. He would never remember it, but I was part of that media scrum, said hello to him. When he first came back into St. Louis, told everybody that he had just brought the entire Pittsburgh Penguins team over to Mom and Dad's house. And, that was in the Pittsburgh Penguins locker room. So Joey and I went to lunch. We had a 2-hour meeting at the Broadway Oyster Bar. All right? And said, we got to make sure we like good food, because this is also probably more important than the job itself. Right? I had no idea at that point he was into making bread and all this other stuff. Still waiting for that first loaf to come, by the way. Just want to throw that out there. But anyhow, here's what happened in that first meeting. He didn't ask, "Well, what's it like to be a broadcaster? Or what's this like?" He didn't ask, "What's it pay?" He said, "What does it take to do the job right?" I hadn't been asked that question by anybody before, but it was a different question. It was one you made to think of. So then you go through the whole interview process, and I was told, "Well, you got to go get some background stuff on him." I said, "Okay." So I called up Robert Bortuzzo, one of his teammates. First thing out of Robert's mouth was, "Curbs, you're not going to meet a better guy on the face of the planet." Like, okay, this is a pretty big planet. Okay, I don't speak a lot of languages too, so I'm going to have a hard time researching that one. So I figured better call somebody else. Let's make sure. All right, so I called over to the Pittsburgh Penguins, talked to Phil Bork, who was their radio guy as well, their analyst. And he says, "Curbs, I got to tell you," he goes, "I didn't even know you were looking at him." He goes, "But you're not going to meet a better guy." So the first thing I asked Phil Bork was, "Did you talk to Bortuzzo?" And he said no. All right, so all of a sudden you kind of get in the feel. So then I reached out to Tyson Nash. I'm like, all right, I'm going to call up Tyson and really get an unbiased opinion here. Here's Joey, goes to the Coyotes, and of course, unfortunately suffered that injury. But, Tyson got to know him, and Tyson says, "Curbs, he's basically Shane Doan, but he'll drink a beer with you." And I went, all right, that's 3 for 3. And next thing you know, Joey Vitale, I go in, meet with a couple people. They said, all right, hire him. So Joe Vitale became the new broadcaster for the St. Louis Blues. It didn't stop there. I can't make this up. And I'm proud of Joe because of this. Sometimes you got to decide as a former player what you want to be. And there's a lot of former players that say, "I want to grab a microphone and just talk about the game I played." But you can quickly separate those kind from the former players that really want to become a broadcaster, learn the trade, work at it. So without any encouraging, he's reaching out to Darren Pang. He's reaching out to Joe Micheletti. He just reached out to the gold standard of broadcasters. He reaches out to Joe Buck just to say, what did you like in the partners that you've worked with? This This is the type of person that the St. Louis Blues brought to the front of the table. And I think this is the type of person as well, which made it a very easy choice for the St. Louis Amateur Hockey Hall of Fame to make an inductee. Of course, he had the terrific career not only as an amateur hockey player in St. Louis, not only as a collegiate player and the only three-time captain of the Northeastern Huskies. That speaks volumes to the type of person he is. But then he forged his own way into the National Hockey League and had a terrific career there. And then over the course of this entire season, watching Joey go from one city to the next and all these former players that he played with and the teammates and how they showed and the amount of respect they had for him speaks more to the person than to the hockey player. So he checks all the boxes, and there's one other box that he absolutely checked here tonight, and you can see it by the tables up here in front, but it's the success as an amateur hockey player, the success and the contributions of hockey. And because you got to fill banquet room, he's got a family large enough to help fill half of it. But it's great to have them here as well, and it's been great over the last year. So I'm really thrilled to stand here today and introduce my broadcast partner, Joey Vitale.
Keep it going for my partner, Chris Kerber. He's doing a great job tonight, everybody. That is without a doubt the nicest thing Chris has ever said about me. I actually met with all those people because the real question was, could I sit with this guy for 9 straight months? I decided, yeah. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank this whole table. Basil, thank you for your words. I'm still getting to know some of you guys. Jim, got to know you a little bit. Actually played pickup with your son the other day. He bailed me out a few times. Sean, your dad made me a captain at age 8. I realized at that moment it wasn't just about me, and your dad was very special to my heart. So that means a lot to me. I want to thank Rupper. By God, Basil was right. I am so glad this thing is over so Rupper can stop texting me and emailing me about tuxedos and tickets. Oh my God, phenomenal, buddy. Rupper, you've been great. I really mean it. Without you, this place and this event would not be possible. So thank you for that. You know, I'd be lying if I had a romantic story about going to the NHL. I never was a kid who had Brett Hall posters in my room. I never had, dreams and aspirations. I didn't, shoot 300 pucks a day just wishing to be in the NHL. My love for hockey grew, quite honestly, through a hatred. And that hatred was pouring concrete. This is the trust circle, right? This doesn't leave this room. I was 9 years old, and I remember it was summer break, and all my friends were going to play sports and hang by the pool. My dad came up to me and my brothers, and he said, well, you're going to start working in the yard. Since I was 9, my God, we were 9 years old. No one can get away with this today. I was pulling nails from lumber. I was cleaning 6-foot steel forms in the hot July sun. And I remember I had like a heat rash on my ass for 3 straight months. Every summer I walk around like this. I couldn't walk. I remember my nanu, he would say, Joe, you look so stupid, put some olive oil on it. By the way, olive oil does work. So quite frankly, I needed a way out. I needed a way from ending my concrete career. And at 16, I entered the summer, and I thought, my God, I have to stop pouring concrete. I found this camp in Minnesota, long story short, camp in Minnesota. I went there for 8 weeks, and I did it summer after summer to completely avoid pouring concrete. But it was there when I fell in love with hockey. I dedicated myself to it mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, on every level. I didn't have a cell phone. It was a retreat. I'd skate twice a day. I did plyometrics. I lifted, and I just read Norman Vincent Peale, positive thinking, pretty much everything I can get my hands on. And that's where I fell in love with hockey. I love hockey. I think we all love hockey because hockey is a special sport that rewards repetition. And I always loved that about it, and still to this day. But going back to the concrete stuff, I have to thank my father for that. Sam Vitale, who's here, who everyone who knows Sam doesn't have an athletic bone in his body. But my dad, he still wakes up at 3:30 every morning. What are you, almost 70, Dad? You gotta be close to 70. Okay, almost 70. Still gets up at 3:30. Wasn't athletic, but he taught me one thing. He taught me the beginning of anything great. If you want to do anything in this world, you gotta have one thing, and you gotta have a solid work ethic. And he taught me that through his solid example. So, Dad, thank you for that. My mother, who's here, Mary Ann, she's the one with the phone, who's been holding on to my kids like monkeys all night. She was the model for unconditional love for me. Whether I played great, whether I played poor, whether I scored 4 goals or let in 10, it didn't matter. I come into the lobby at Afton Ice Rink, I get my breakfast sandwich, and my mom would be there, and she'd welcome me with the warmest hug and the biggest smile. To me, that was something that I still hold very, very dear to my heart today because she taught me grace. She taught me unmerited love. She taught me that her love for me isn't something that's earned. It's something that's just a gift. And I should just be grateful for that. So, Mom, thank you for that. My brothers and sisters, I'm one of 6. Some of them are here, some of them couldn't make it. Sam, Charlie, Maria, Angie, Josie. You guys were my first teammates. We spent countless hours in the garage. I remember that's where I learned to shoot a wrist shot. That's where I learned the hip check, because I used my 4-year-old sister as a dummy. I remember religiously asking you guys, put on the goalie equipment, stop being a wuss, put on the goalie equipment. And we would just fire shots at her head. My parents would have to replace the garage at least 3 or 4 times a year, broken windows. But again, those were my first teammates, and thank you guys for being rink rats. Someone up here used the word rink rats. I think it's a great word. They followed me through everything, all the cities. We traveled halfway across the country. They may have complained in their head, but again, when you're one of 6, you go with the flow. We were a team, and they never once complained. So I want to thank you guys for that here tonight. My sisters and brothers still laugh at this story, but like Chris mentioned, when I was in town with the Pittsburgh Penguins, my first revisit back to St. Louis, we had the whole team over to Mom and Dad's house. And I remember like Evgeny Malkin's over here, Sidney Crosby's in my kitchen. It was kind of, sometimes I still think about it, like, wow, that was pretty incredible. And my dad gets the floor, and he starts talking to Sid about what? He starts talking about the 1 year I didn't win state championship my sophomore year. He's like, Sid, so this kid from DeSmet, he high sticks this puck in the net, and they count it. And then Joe loses state championship. Can you believe that? Johnny, you remember that. Brian Wyman. It was a high stick, by the way. It was a high stick. But Sid, he hung in tight. But as you can see, Basil mentioned the Joe's family. CBC runs through my blood. And of all the things I've done, my dad, to this day, still loses sleep. He gets up at 3:30 every day because of Brian Wyman and the DeSmet Spartans. Because my sophomore year, he took that ring from my finger. So, speaking of that, Joe's family, like Basil said, you guys, you're St. Louis hockey. Your dad, Jimmy Sr., what he did for me that I don't even know, what he did for everyone in this room, no one knows. He was so quiet about it. I can't tell you how much it means that you're here tonight, and thank you for all your service throughout the years. The players, I see Kyle, I see a bunch of guys around. Kramer, thank you guys. You guys pushed me along. We didn't have dreams. We didn't have aspirations. Kids nowadays, they train because they want to play in the National Hockey League. That was never a thing 20 years ago. We loved each other. We loved the game. We showed up every day. We did the best we could. And because of you guys, I am here. My opponents, I'd like to take this moment to formally apologize for anything I've ever said to you over the years. I didn't mean it. I'm going to try to wrap this up, keep it tight, because I got 3 little kids. No matter what time they go to bed, they still get up at 5:30 in the morning. I can't figure it out. Making it to this level, as anyone would tell you, it takes a tribe, it takes a cast that I've already mentioned, and people I can't help but forget about. But it takes a couple other things. It takes luck, and it takes precise timing. And for those 2 things, I look up. My life, I've been blessed with opportunities and experiences that I know are not of my hand or any other human hand for that matter. And for that, I thank God. At the very top of that list, God has blessed me with the most beautiful woman, the mother of my 3 children, Brianna, who's sitting up front, who, believe it or not, is actually pregnant with our 4th kid. How about that? Yeah, 4th. She's 12 weeks pregnant with our 4th baby. Yeah, I did it. What? It's crazy, and truthfully, I am married to my best friend, who I occasionally get to sleep with, so it's actually pretty fun. It's more than occasionally, just so we all know. Just so we're clear here. My kids have no idea what's going on. They got M&Ms, they're fine.
Keep going down this road, Joe.
I should have started with this. She just can't keep her hands off me. All right, I'll stop there. You know, my wife, I was halfway across the country when she was pregnant with my daughter Summer, who's up front. And 8 years ago, her water broke when she was in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and I was in Norfolk. And she called me in the middle of the night. She said, "Honey, my water broke." And this woman literally drove herself to the hospital and started pushing by herself. Not one family member, not one friend in that entire city. And she did it all alone. And they say hockey players are tough. I have no idea how she did it. In closing, I can't forget these little minions up front. The best gift you've ever given me, Brianna, has been our 3 children with 4 on the way. You know, I think back on all my experiences playing, growing up, and if I had to sum it up or had to break it down, what was the best? What was the best moment? Without question, it was this. Leaving the locker room after a game in my suit, walking on the event level, turning the corner, and seeing Brianna and seeing my children wearing their daddy jerseys. They turn, they see me, and they give me the biggest hug, and they tackle me. And they yell, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." I remember dusting off my suit and realizing in that moment what they say is true. It's not so much what you do in life, but it's the people you have to share it with. So I want to thank all you for sharing this moment with me tonight. Thank you.
Man, if I knew we were going down that road, I'd have brought another note card and saved it for October. We'd have filled some stuff out.
With a new radio station like that?
Oh yeah, it's FM. We can say anything. It's like cable. Listen, Mr. Vitale, don't listen to that junk he was spewing about hating concrete. Because, and we got pictures of this, he wears these damn Red Wing work boots to the arena every day. Like, he could have this tuxedo on. I can't believe he didn't bring his work boots with it. So there is part of him still in denial that he is a part of the family, doesn't mind concrete. We are in Anaheim, California, and he's doing a Facebook Live thing with Panger, and here's Panger all dressed to the nines. Panger wears Gucci slippers from American Girl doll store. They're only about that big, right? You know, I think it was either that or Build-A-Bear. I couldn't remember where he got them from, right? And, you know, and there's Joey in his work boots, you know, just working that out. Brianna, congratulations. We cannot wait to have another St. Louis Blues fan. And as you guys know, family's the most important thing, so we'll go ahead and just to take it further, if you want to give birth in the booth during the game, you can do that too. What the hell? I mean, we're at that point, right, Joe? We're close enough we can do that? Yep, all right.